Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstam Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Ai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to our continued discussion of chapter 9. Today we'll be discussing verses 16 until verse 22. 22 being a very famous verse and very comforting verse that I look forward to discussing. So this initial section of this discussion today will talk about the indirect worship of Krishna. So last week Krishna was speaking about in the prior verses about who is a Muddha or a fool. And we said that Krishna said those who deride Krishna as an ordinary human. They think that Krishna's form is temporary. That when God descends from the spiritual world, he is forced to take a form. Otherwise, he is impersonal. But as we know, the Supreme Lord is always existing in his eternal form in the spiritual world and is present through his different energies here in the material world. And so one who does not understand this, Krishna said, fools deride me when I descend in my human form. So it's a big confusion. And then Krishna spoke about the Mahatma. So as compared to the great fool, the Mahatma, which means great soul, Mahatma, great soul, they are protected under the divine energy of Krishna. And there are very specific symptoms or activities of a Mahatma, and Krishna gave those in the 14th verse. That what does a Mahatma do? They're always chanting the glories of the Lord. They are endeavoring with great determination. They are not fazed by any setback or difficulty. They're offering obeisances, and they are perpetually worshiping Krishna. So this humility and continuous engagement. So that's the Mahatma. And the 22nd verse we'll discuss today is one of the verses that a Mahatma has great faith in, to be perpetually engaged in the worship of Krishna with great humility, with great determination, and are certainly chanting the holy names of the Lord. So that was the Mahatma. So in the last verses, the verse of Krishna spoke, he spoke about three personalities who worship Krishna, but not as the absolute, in some indirect way. Okay? So we'll discuss now in today's section those who are worshiping, the devatas and others as the Supreme Lord. How they concoct, their own idea, and those who also worship the universal form as the end all be all, the ultimate. So that's the contents of today's discussion. So 16th verse. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, that healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. So here again Krishna is speaking that everything, the rituals, the sacrifices, the offerings, the mantras in the Vedas, it's all coming from Krishna. We saw this in the 7th chapter, that even the faith to worship the devatas comes from Krishna. Right? So the karmakandis are worshiping ultimately Krishna, because everything they're using in their worship is Krishna, is coming from Krishna himself. Right? So everything they need to complete the yajna is the Supreme Lord. He is the Vedic chants. So they are indirectly worshiping the Supreme Lord. Now, by worshiping Krishna directly, it's considered that all the different sacrifices in the Vedas have been performed. And we saw this very clearly in the 8th chapter, the very last verse, where Krishna said, all the benefits of performing the various rituals in the Vedas are included within the practice of devotional service, which now makes some logical sense, because anyways these rituals in the Vedas, you are indirectly worshiping the Supreme Lord. So what to say of when you directly worship him? Certainly those benefits would also be there. There would be nothing missing, right? So this is why one should be very thoughtful of the object of their worship. Thinking anything is God, or I can worship whatever I like, it'll all end up in the same place. That is not supported here by Krishna. While Krishna is everything, one should worship him as the Supreme Person. Okay? So, in the 17th verse, Krishna continues this theme. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. Right? So again, and Prabhupada says in the purport, the entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. So everything in this universe, animate and inanimate, is Krishna's energies. Right? So all the life we see around us, it is due to Krishna. Krishna is the Pitaham, right? The Father. He says, I am the Father. He is the seed-giving Father. Aham bija pradaha pita. They'll say later. So all the living entities, and Srila Prabhupada makes this purport in this point in the purport, that all the relationships that we carry with us, our ancestors, our family members, our friends in society, all those relationships, they're living entities. And those living entities are also part and parcel of Krishna. So our mother, our father, they're also part and parcel of Krishna. And so, and one who sees this, sees those relationships in relationship to Krishna, never sees them separate from Krishna. They're all related, because ultimately everyone is the son or daughter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why he is saying, I am the Father of this entire universe. Even Lord Brahma, the Creator, he is part and parcel of Krishna. So anyone that we try to worship, or anyone that we show affection or becomes the object of our worship, they're indirectly worshiping Krishna, because everything is part and parcel of Krishna. Just like if I draw a drop of ocean water from the ocean, that is the ocean. It is part and parcel of the ocean. It may be represented in very small or minute forms. So similarly, one with this knowledge sees that Krishna is present everywhere. And so Prabhupada states further in this purport that whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step towards understanding Krishna. Krishna will make this point in the 15th chapter. But everything in the Vedas is simply a progressive step to understanding Krishna as he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why this is the Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge. Sometimes we think, maybe there's some more higher knowledge contained within the Vedas. And that is why Krishna established at the beginning of this chapter the most confidential knowledge, that this is the king, the ultimate of all knowledge, to know Krishna. Right? So Prabhupada is reminding us of this in this verse. Now in the 18th verse, Krishna says, I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. So now Krishna is giving many more, understanding, very specific details. Right? He is the maintainer. How? Everything is his energy. We saw in chapter 7. It's either his apara or para shakti. Right? How he is the source of everything, the essence of everything, and the controller. We saw those three aspects to understand how Krishna is present everywhere throughout the universe. That was chapter 7. So here in the summary, he is the maintainer because everything we interact with for our sustenance is Krishna, one of his energies. He is non-different from his energies. Every breath we take. So he is certainly our maintainer. Krishna says he is the goal. I am the goal. Right? Gati. All things we want ultimately are Krishna. Whatever goals we set in this world, in this endeavor for our life, ultimately we are either directly or indirectly wanting Krishna. But not seeing that and then indirectly pursuing different aspects is what leads to our difficulties in life. But actually understanding the connectivity, but for whatever that is which we aspire for, and its connection to Krishna reveals to us that actually Krishna is the supreme goal, because we are his part and parcel. And getting reconnected to our eternal Father, our eternal Master, is the fulfillment of all desires, of all wants. Right? So, this is Krishna saying, I am the goal. Right? He says, I am the master. Yes, we have an eternal position. Whether we like it or not, the reality is we are servants of Krishna. And actually that is the only likable position for us in this whole creation. While we think we want to be the master, it is not possible. Because we are fully maintained by some higher living entity, the Supreme Lord. Krishna says again, I'm the eternal seed, right? The source of everything. Anadir Adir Govinda is the source of everything. The most dear friend. This is very comforting. Krishna tells us. He already said in the 5th chapter, right? that I am the well-wisher of everyone. He says, I am the most dear friend. He is sitting in our heart waiting for us to turn to him. Remember the two birds in the tree. One is enjoying the fruits of the tree. The other is witnessing. Just waiting. Has so much love and care for us. We take one step to Krishna. He takes many, many steps towards us. Not even a 1-to-1 ratio. He's our most dear friend. He is the abode. Even the heavenly planets within the material world, they're all expansions of Krishna's energies. Everywhere we live is Krishna's energy. He says, I am the witness. He's sitting in our heart as Paramatma, witnessing all of our activities, sees everything, knows our deepest, innermost desires, and works to fulfill those. Even if our desire is to not know Krishna, Krishna will also fulfill that. Because he's our best friend. Even if we are not so favorable to him, Krishna still provides. He doesn't take sides. Doesn't say, it's not conditional. If you serve me, then I will provide for you. He's providing air and rains and sunlight and facilities to all living entities, both his devotees and non-devotees. And he knows, being the supreme witness, says the basis of everything. Everything rests upon him. All of his material energies. So what is the point of all this? It's a point we've heard before, but it's important and worth repeating. Krishna is the basis of everything. He is everything we interact with. Nothing exists without the Supreme Lord's shelter. Because to approach the energy of Krishna is to approach him indirectly. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Right? When we approach the energy of Krishna, whatever we approach in matter, the material creation, that is approaching Krishna, but indirectly. So then where should we direct our worship? There is no other object of our worship. It's Krishna. So Krishna is telling us this to give us some conclusive and conviction in the basis of pure devotional service. The Mahatma is perpetually worshiping Krishna. Pure means never any other object. Well, how to not have any other object in our vision is to have faith that Krishna is everything. There is no other object, entity or non-entity, living, that can provide something that is not directly related to Krishna. And he is truly that root of the tree. Every branch of the tree is connected to that root. And Krishna is that root of all existence. When you water the root, all the branches are nourished. So this, the conclusion is that one should become inspired. That, let me worship Krishna directly. Why I would worship him indirectly? And Prabhupada says in the purport that the benefit of worshiping Krishna directly is ultimately we're going to come to Krishna anyways. So why not take the elevator to the top floor? Why take the stairs? Why go step by step? It saves time and energy, Prabhupada says. And has less risk of being distracted when we go direct. So this direct worship, which is the topic of this chapter, is clearly the best path. But Krishna is establishing and helping us understand these indirect forms of worship. Right? And Prabhupada makes another nice point in this purport, that when we need protection, we must seek out someone, a living force, a living entity. Matter, material nature cannot protect us. So who is the most protective force? Whoever is the most powerful, that can overcome whatever that is presenting danger. And that is the Supreme Lord. Right? He is our best friend, as he is saying here, most dear friend. He is certainly the most powerful, the source of everything. Well, the source of everything can control it. So nobody can protect us like Krishna can. Not even our own mother and father here in the material world. And in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, we see this. His mother was ready and comfortable and encouraged him. If you want to fulfill your desire, you must go to the forest and search out the Supreme Lord. Now, how many mothers would send their 5-year-old child into the deep forest by themselves? But she knew, whatever protection I can provide as mother is but just a tiny, tiny fraction of the protection that Krishna himself can provide and will provide. And thus she had great faith in letting her son, and even instructing him, this is what you should do if you're so determined to fulfill your desire. So this is the conclusion. So now Krishna continues in 19. O Arjuna, I give heat, and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality. I am death, also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. A little bit of a summary here. Now, who gives rain? But Lord Indra was the king of rains. Again, he is the empowered controller of rain. Empowered by who? Krishna. He is the supreme arranger. Then he says, I am spirit and matter. Everything within the material world, as we said, apara and para shakti. Chapter 7. So this section of the verses, this section, is showing us, the two of the three types of worshippers that Krishna referenced in verse 15. Okay? This final one is in relation to the supreme, the universal form. Excuse me. Yeah, the aspect of the universal form. Right. So that was one of the three. Thinking that the universal form, this giant universe, is the supreme, and Krishna will tell us in chapter 11 that this is just a temporary manifestation of him. Right? So this is Krishna's establishment that he is the source of everything. And now, in verse 20, he's going to speak about the devatas, the demigod worship. So if we remember from 15, Krishna said that there are three types of other worshippers of Krishna. One who worships them, one without a second, the diverse and many, and the universal form. Right? So this is the diverse and many and universal form section. So now we'll talk about the indirect worship related to the devatas. So Krishna says in 20, those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. So now Krishna is explaining again the second of those who surrender other than to Krishna directly. And these are the Devata worshippers. How is Krishna being worshipped through the Karma Kanda sacrifices? Again, everything is the basis of Krishna. He is providing whatever results the demigods can offer. He is already, he is providing the actual sacrifice, the mantras, the process, and even the faith. And what is the result? They become purified from the lower modes. They obtain good pious credits, and thus can enjoy in the heavenly planets. But they'll not achieve Krishna. So Krishna then explains the result of this worship in the next verse. He says, when they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. So Krishna is clarifying that yes, you'll enjoy better facilities for sense enjoyment, longer life, more opulence. But once your credits are used up, what happens? You return back home. And we've seen this in prior verses. So the ultimate result is remaining in this cycle of repeated birth and death. There's no freedom from this. Maybe some enhanced sense enjoyment, but still all within the realm of suffering. Dukhalayam ashashpatam. Material world. Krishna said, from the highest planet to the lowest, he said in chapter 8, it's a place of misery. Maybe less, but this is what you're going to get. And again in chapter 8, he said, but one who worships me attains my eternal abode. No more birth and death. So this is the distinction. Right? This is not the eternal spiritual world. This is still within the temporary realm of the material creation. So the result of this indirect worship of Krishna, which is the Devata worship, is this. Sometimes when we speak about worshiping the Devatas, we think, this is separate from Krishna. No. Krishna said already now in the 20th verse, they're worshiping me indirectly. So now in the next verse, Krishna is going to explain what's the difference between worshiping of Krishna and worshiping of the Devatas. The Devatas, the demigod worshippers, they get some money, some rain, some opulence. Well, what about the pure devotees? How are their necessities taken care of? If one worships the Devatas for these different material facilities, but what happens when one worships Krishna? What is the result? That would be a logical next question then. So Krishna now is going to answer that in this very beautiful verse 922. Actually, if we have faith in this verse, we'll find great peace in all aspects of life, in all circumstances of life. There'll never be any dissatisfaction. That seems like a strong statement, but it's true. Krishna says, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. So we see a very important word here. Aham. I. So now let's break this verse apart and spend some time discussing this final verse of today's section. It's very important. So first, Krishna says this parupasate, that correctly worship. Right? Interesting. Now, Krishna is saying that properly worship. So it's indicating that these other worships he has just spoken about, starting from verse 15 until 21, they are not correct. According to Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the proper worship is to directly worship Krishna. And why is it incorrect? Because they're worshiping with incomplete knowledge, not knowing that Krishna is the maintainer, the essence, the source, the ultimate friend, the ultimate enabler and maintainer of everything. So Krishna is using a very important word here. So this is the proper mode of worship. Of course, it's up to us as free will to decide, but he's telling his dear friend Arjuna and telling all of us, this is the proper way to worship. Then he says, he adds the word ananyas, which having no other object is pure, unalloyed, right? No other motive, just worship Krishna. And Prabhupada describes this sentiment or this experience very vividly. And I wanted to read, a quote from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Quote, one who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies, which makes the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this pure devotional service, when Krishna says exclusive devotion, this is exclusive devotion. One is unable to live for even a moment without Krishna consciousness, meaning without being able to think of Krishna. 24 hours a day, engaged in the 9 processes of devotional service. Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Vandanam, that's all the different Archanam and Padasevanam, all these different aspects that Prahlad Maharaj had explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And so these 9 processes. Now, what does Krishna provide to those who only worship Krishna and only meditate on him? Again, exclusively, ananyas, pure. What does he do? He says, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Very powerful. Seems like a simple statement, but let's unpack it in detail. What does this mean? Whatever we have, Krishna is protecting it. Whatever we need, Krishna is providing it. Not only is he providing it, he is carrying it for us. When you go on like a long camping hike, you have to take many things you'll need on that 1, 2, 3 day hike, right? But what is always a challenge? Carrying it all. Krishna is saying to his pure devotee, his reciprocation so strong. He's saying, I'll actually carry it for you as you progress, as you walk through the path of devotional service. We don't even have to carry our own necessities. Such supreme love Krishna has for his devotee. Faith in this statement is what allows us to surrender. If we really have faith in this, how we would surrender to anything else but Krishna. When Krishna says, Atma Nivedanam, full surrender to me. One has faith in this statement. Krishna is going to provide everything at all steps of life. The devotee has so much determination in their sadhana that they even neglect their own maintenance and don't care for their liberation. They leave it to Krishna. Krishna will provide what he deems necessary for me. This faith is what leads to exclusively focused on bhakti. Not, yes, I am worshiping Krishna, but I also have to maintain myself. I also need to perform these other things so that, I can, preserve my 401k, where my chapatis will come tomorrow, all these things. Right? So we have this concern. But to the pure devotee who's exclusively focused on Krishna, Krishna's carrying everything and providing everything. Okay? There's no concern. And Srila Prabhupada is a perfect example of this. If we see how he boarded a steamship with just a few dollars in his pocket, a few books, and no idea what was going to unfold on the other side of that journey. No idea. He had no idea where he was going to stay when he left Butler, Pennsylvania and went to New York. How he was going to eat. Who was going to meet him. He had very limited understanding or clarity of his path forward. But he had perfect faith in this statement. Krishna was going to protect. Krishna was going to provide. Many days, Srila Prabhupada, we read his diaries, you see, he was down to his last pennies each day. At the end of the day, there was nothing left. And he had nothing for tomorrow. But he was never disturbed. And every time, Krishna would say, some young boy or girl would come and, participate, render some service, maybe give some donation. And this was unfolding over and over and over again. Srila Prabhupada seemingly, externally, was on the brink of having nothing. But he had everything. Because he had faith in this statement. That Krishna, I carry what you lack and preserve what you have. Even the devotees early on, they would be worried. How are we going to do this, Prabhupada? How are we going to do this? You just bought this big building. We have no money. And Prabhupada would say, Krishna will provide if he wants it. Not Krishna is going to fulfill all my desires. No. If Krishna wants it to happen, he'll provide it. So, it's a very beautiful and powerful statement. Another angle or perspective of this is Krishna. Krishna knows that his devotees are so absorbed in loving service to him that he enjoys, he wants to make sure that we are okay. So much love he has for his pure devotees. He knows his devotees are so absorbed in thoughts of me, Krishna is saying, that I'll take care of them. Just like a child is so engrossed in playing, mother will come and bring some food. Oh, my child, eat. Knowing that the child is fully absorbed. Well, Krishna knows that the child, we, the pure devotee, at least aspiring to be, we are fully absorbed in Krishna. So, of course, Krishna will ensure we are okay in all regards. And so these devotees can't live even a minute without such a wonderful, loving Supreme Lord. Right? So, Krishna, earlier he said he is neutral. Right? He is aloof, uninterested in the activities within the material world. Like a judge, giving out rewards and punishments. But he has special favor for his devotees. And this is the proof of his special favor. And we see many examples of this. Krishna gave himself to Arjuna, driving Arjuna's chariot. And I think in Borijan Prabhu's class, he reminds us of this nice, pastime. At the end, when it was time to, the war was concluded, get off the chariot, Arjuna was asked first to get off. Normally the etiquette is the driver will dismount, and then, the person in the chariot will, dismount in a very grand way. But Arjuna was wondering why Krishna is suddenly not following this etiquette. He said, no, you get off first. And as soon as Arjuna got off, and then when Krishna got off, the whole chariot burst into flames. And he understood Krishna was the one protecting him from all those weapons and fire the entire time. It was the Supreme Lord that was protecting him. Madhavendra Puri, who carried what he lacked, he personally came and brought him a pot of milk, knowing he was not even going out to beg. And so Krishna himself came and provided the pot of milk. Draupadi, when Durvasa Muni came with all of his associates, how to cook and feed, stuck in the forest. She prayed, and Krishna came. And he begged for one small grain. And from that, Durvasa Muni had no more room in his belly for food. He felt fully satisfied and just left. But who came? Krishna. Haridas Thakur being beaten in the marketplaces. Sudarshan Chakra was ready to come. But the order of Krishna was defeated by the order of his devotee, who was begging for forgiveness for those who were beating him. So Krishna, did he give up? I tried. I sent my chakra, but Haridas Thakur trumped my statement. Did he give up? No. He personally came and jumped on the back of Haridas Thakur and accepted all of those lashings. Prabhupada would tell the story often of Arjunacharya. Again, more and more examples. Arjunacharya was a great scholar, great Brahmana. He was very poor, but very learned. When he read this verse, that Krishna carries what he lacks, he said, Krishna can't carry it. No, it can't be. He was a devotee, but he couldn't understand that Krishna personally does it. So he crossed out the word, the line that aham, that I carry. And he said, and he changed it to that Krishna provides it. He says Krishna has it done. He couldn't understand that. The I piece he couldn't understand. He said, no, Krishna is aloof. He's the Supreme Lord. He couldn't think how Krishna would be troubled with something like this. So he crossed out in his Bhagavad Gita and said, Krishna arranges it. He had full faith. Krishna is the arranger, the provider. But he didn't understand. He couldn't contemplate that I carry what they lack. So then after that, he closed up his book, went downstairs, and went to start begging. That was, he had no money. So after some time, there was a knock on the door. And his wife opened the door and saw two beautiful boys. They were carrying many nice fruits and vegetables and boga. And she said, why you brought this? Your husband forced us to. Really? And the wife says, oh, well, come in, please. Please come in. And the boys say, no, we're scared of him. He'll beat us. And she said, what? My husband? He's like the calmest, most loving person. No. Yeah, he'll beat us. Look. And they opened their shirts in the back and they showed, and they had all these marks. He beat you like this? And the two boys said, yes, yes. And she was shocked. And the two boys left. And so she began to cook and began to prepare all the offerings, thinking that her husband had sent that bhoga. But Arjunacharya didn't come for some long time. And she began to eat. And she started honoring the offerings and prasad. And when he returned, he was shocked. He said, what? You are eating before I have? You've never done this before. How you could do that? And she replied, you are so cruel. You have beaten these two boys. They came and brought such nice bhoga. And Arjunacharya was shy. What? What do they look like? I didn't beat anybody. Who are they? And she just said, I don't know, but they were so beautiful. One had a darkish complexion. One had a whitish complexion. I've never seen anything like this. And Arjunacharya thought, what? And he had an inclination. And then he went up to his room and he opened his Bhagavad Gita and he understood that when he crossed out those words, Krishna himself came with Lord Balaram to carry what he lacked. And those wounds, that was the scratching out of the words of Krishna. Krishna took those as personal wounds. And so Arjunacharya understood that Krishna himself comes. That is the moral. He doesn't send anybody, not through any other agents. He's personally involved in the life of his devotees. We saw this in Sri Upanishad. We also understand from this story that Prabhupada would tell, Krishna is non-different from his books. When we write on his books, cross it, that is Krishna. So we should be very protective of our books. When we go to study, that's why when we go for Bhakti Vrikshas, we should carry the Bhagavad Gita with us. It is bringing Krishna with us. We should bring it in a nice bag. If we're going to put it on a asan. This is Krishna himself. So many examples we see. I told you Arjuna's story. One question sometimes comes. Does Krishna only do this for the Mahatma, the pure soul? Even the sadhakas, even those attempting, who are on the path of Krishna consciousness. Krishna gives protection and care. So one can rest assured, oh, I am not this exclusive devotee. I'm not a pure devotee. Yes, we are not pure. But by the practice of Krishna consciousness, following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, one will become pure. And thus Krishna reciprocates. Just like Prabhupada was once asked, how many pure devotees you have in your movement? And he looked to his secretary and said, how many members we have? I don't remember whatever number he said. He said, that many we are pure. And then the servant was surprised. Prabhupada, some of these people just came yesterday. They're not pure. He says, don't worry. They are practicing. They soon will become pure. And he gave the example that on a mango tree, there may be some buds, but those will become mangoes soon. Fully ripe mangoes. Just a matter of time. So yes, even the sadhaka, they may not be pure, but like a budding mango, it'll become pure in time if one remains connected to that tree, if one remains connected to Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, practicing, one will become pure. So yes, even to the sadhaka. So one may ask then, why do devotees have difficulties? If Krishna is protecting, right? Why are there difficulties? So we have many nice examples and stories and personalities to follow in this mood. So the difficulties one faces, they enhance the love and surrender to Krishna. Krishna knows when difficulty comes, it intensifies one's love. The calamities are welcome because they propel the devotee to think more about Krishna. Even in Goloka Vrindavan, right? Calamities came. How many demons came and disturbed the experiences of the cowherd boys? But it intensified their love and surrender for Krishna. When Lord Indra was showering rains that were threatening the lives of the animals, there was fear everywhere. And where all the residents surrendered to? Krishna. That difficulty brought out one of the greatest experiences of their time with Krishna. 7 uninterrupted days of association. They all were desiring the opportunity to be with Krishna uninterruptedly. But they never could, because Krishna was constantly going from the cowherd boys, from Mother Yashoda to the gopis, to this, always moving. But in this instance, they all had uninterrupted association. So in the great difficulty and fear, Krishna, so even this emotion, it intensifies the love for Krishna. And for us, in our progressive stage of coming to this pure platform, the difficulties, they are like the stairways back to Godhead. They create the step-by-step opportunities. If you have a lump of gold, and it is mixed with other metals, how do you separate the gold from the rest of the metals? You have to heat the gold. You melt it in a fire. And that gold will separate. So to purify the heart, sometimes there is some heat, some fire, some difficulties. But it purifies the heart. And that is why Queen Kunti is praying again and again. Right? And I wanted to read this very beautiful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 25th verse of the 8th chapter. This verse in purport, the purport by Srila Prabhupada is extraordinary. And if you'll bear with me, I wanted to read the purport word for word. It's so sweet and so powerful. One of my favorite in all of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the verse is, Queen Kunti is saying, I wish that all these calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. Queen Kunti is saying, who is there? Who is protecting? In the midst of all these calamities? Krishna. So she is welcoming the calamities. Why? Because Krishna is always there during those times. So the purport is so wonderful. Again, this is the 25th verse of the 8th chapter of the first canto. Prabhupada's purport, just brilliant. Generally, the distressed, the needy, the intelligent, and the inquisitive, who have performed some pious activities, worship or begin to worship the Lord. Others who are thriving on misdeeds only, regardless of status, cannot approach the Supreme due to being misled by delusory energy. Therefore, for a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no alternative other than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Certainly, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so-called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. And I love how Srila Prabhupada states the word, they give us. Srila Prabhupada endured his own calamities, heart attacks on the ship, being robbed, being physically threatened, so many calamities. He never lamented, Krishna, why you are doing this to me? It only intensified his love. Continuing on. One who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are accepted as the most suitable boat for crossing the ocean in nations, can achieve liberation as easily as one leaps over the holes made by the hoofs of a calf. Such persons are meant to reside in the abode of the Lord, and they have nothing to do with a place where there is danger in every step. This material world is certified by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place itself is full of calamities. They have no information of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and without a trace of calamity. The duty of the sane person, therefore, is to be undisturbed by worldly calamities, which are sure to happen in all circumstances. Suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritualization, because that is the mission of human life. So, I'll end there. That purport continues, but you can see, the mood of the devotee. They have such faith that even the calamities happen. So don't think that, Krishna's providing everything that will be free of all difficulties. There will be difficulties. But those difficulties lead to further enhancement and intensifying the love and relationship between Krishna and his devotees. Okay? And we have, so many proofs of the protection. We spoke about the proof of Krishna providing, but the protection. Again, Draupadi in the assembly of Duryodhana. Who was providing? Haridas Thakur, we saw, protecting. Prahlad Maharaj, protecting. Residents of Vrindavan and Govardhan, protecting. Srila Prabhupada, after suffering his 2 heart attacks. The captain of the ship said in all his life, he had never seen the Atlantic Ocean like a plate of glass, perfectly smooth, no waves. Prabhupada was not going to be able to physically endure another tumultuous day. He had never seen it. Who provided that? And let us remember that what is it that Krishna is protecting when he says protect what we have? It is not our physical being. It is protecting our Krishna consciousness. Krishna will protect us from falling down, from falling away from the path, if we remain fixed in devotional service. Yes, our wealth, our possessions, our status, that may all be at risk. But to a devotee, that has no meaning. What they want protection from is your opportunity to serve Krishna. And our Acharya's comment on this verse, that this is not a burden for Krishna when he says, I carry what they lack. It is his sweet will and pleasure. He desires to serve his devotees. Now, our mood, however, should not be, let me put myself in all kinds of difficulties. Krishna will come and protect. We should not make ourselves a burden to Krishna, though it is not a burden. The devotee has great love. He does not want to, have Krishna come. It is not troubling Krishna. Though it is not, the mood of the devotee is not to put themselves in harm's way. So one should be very careful and mindful and practical in protecting themselves, but then ultimately knowing Krishna will protect. So one should not take this to the other side and feel, oh, I can cross this road without looking both ways. Krishna will protect. No, that is foolish. One must do their part, but then understand Krishna will ultimately protect. So it is not a burden for the Lord, but the devotee also knows, I shall not, make Krishna come and protect me by being foolish. And of course, how it could be a burden. Billions of universes are being created without the slightest of burden for Krishna. What is the burden for the Lord to provide a few chapatis? Not so difficult. So if we have, again, faith in this verse, then one can fully surrender to Krishna. Krishna's always said surrendering is great. Right? But now we see He is so supremely protecting and providing for us. What is left for us to know? This is the personal relationship Krishna has with His pure devotees. This doesn't occur in the indirect worship of Krishna. And so we saw what happens in the indirect worship, repeated birth and death. But for His pure devotee, in verse 22, Krishna provides everything. So this concludes today's section. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Any questions or comments on today's verses? Hare Krishna.
Nice to your class, Prabhu. Very nice and crystal clear explanation. But while explaining, my mind is running with so many questions, so many. So from thousands of years, the followers of our religion, they are worshipping wrong way, very clearly. As per Krishna's explanation of the demigod worship is the wrong way. And the other part of non-believers, they keep on attacking blamed out of us, but still they are worshipping. Their understanding was not clear about the Supreme, but they still, possibly they were doing right only because they are trying to destroy this demigod worship. Basically, the main core of understanding for them is that only the supreme understanding is impersonal, their understanding, but the way how they are dealing the deity worshippers as the demigod worshippers must be right. Some plan of Krishna. So we understand this. Then giving back to the people who are very attached to the demigod worshippers and come.
Yeah, and remember, the demigod worship, it is a opportunity for progressive steps towards Krishna consciousness. So when Krishna says Pariyupasate, that this is the proper way, that is true. The indirect worship is not the recommended way. It is a process that Krishna himself has given in the Vedas, right? So why he gave it? Because for one who cannot accept this Guyam, not only Guyam, Raja Guyam, most confidential knowledge, he wanted to give another opportunity for them to begin their journey to this point. So the demigod worship, while it is not the recommended path, it has a function in one's progressive stage if they are not able to take to the direct path. But as we know, if you know all the options, and then make your decision, you'll make the best decision. You know, if you if you go onto an aeroplane and you can pick, the aisle seat in an exit row, this is a great seat. But if you haven't seen the business class section, or if you haven't seen the first class section, you'll think this is the best. But if I've seen all the options, then I can select which is the best. Just using a very crude example. So the most Devata worshippers, most, not all, most, it is a lack of understanding. So what we can do, sometimes difficult, often difficult, but some way, slowly begin to explain the connectivity between their worship and Krishna. We don't destroy the foundation of their belief that what they're doing is wrong. What we do is build upon that to explain there's an even higher opportunity. Now you can go to the direct process. Someone who's been taking the stairs up to the top of the building, we can still meet them on the 20th floor and say, hey, did you know there's an elevator here? Come here, let's take the elevator. Even though they've progressed 20 flights on the stairs, there's still a chance they can exit the stairwell and take the elevator. And that is our opportunity. How we can, very tactfully try that. So what most Devata worshippers have done, again, the ones who are not offensive to the position of the Supreme Lord, but maybe out of ignorance, not knowing, there's still hope for them to progress towards Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada makes that statement in the purport. So that is the hope. The impersonalists who destroy this philosophy are doing so obviously not in a sanguine way, not in a way that supports the understanding of the purpose of this process. So it is sad, but that is why Prabhupada has come, to enlighten us.
Otherwise, could have completely vanished all our religion.
Yeah. Again, it's better than doing unregulated sense enjoyment, right? Demigod worship is basically regulated sense enjoyment. So better than unregulated is regulated. But it's still going to keep us within the realm of birth and death. It's the A-class jail cell. And that's why we should be very grateful and never lose a moment of appreciation for what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Because he has given us the extraordinary gift. But sometimes because it's around us, we take it for granted. So.
Because of Srila Prabhupada today, Prime Minister of India also recognized this concept.
Yeah.
That's important thing, because he's actually taking words about Krishna, about Srila Prabhupada openly in the form signed. That is actually very pleasing to me, because so many wrong things have been done from so many years. So many big people came and they did so many things, but at the end, this is not corrected until now. So mercy of Srila Prabhupada. We have the option. And here we can understand that how it is most confidential, even though the information is there in the book.
Yes.
Because of this is the most confidential, people not understand. And in my place, Prabhu, where I got from a village, so then Brahmanas never go to any other temple than Vishnu temple. They never worship any other. They say it is their family tradition. They never reveal it is a tradition for everyone. It is not a family.
Yeah.
So now I realize it's like I feel like getting like so much crying because the teaching was not given properly. Basically, they did follow that they never go to other demigods temples. They only worship the Vishnu. but they didn't tell that openly. They kept as a secret itself
Yeah.
from the book. It's Srila Prabhupada Mahasi. It's really wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. We are all fortunate. We are being preserved by Prabhupada. Yes. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for sharing your heart.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Tanvi Pranam, all those who should
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranams.
Yeah, Prabhuji, 922, and the last verse is really outstanding. It's really good. I mean, it's just mind blowing actually. The fact that basically one is just even a sadhaka just sincerely trying to do some service, and Krishna is so merciful to just do those, give those two qualities. So my question is, like, is it basically he's talking about spiritually, like protecting bhakti you mentioned, and also carrying what they lack. So lack is again spiritually what they may be lacking. Just trying to understand that little bit in depth. What part he would
Karen.
do?
Yeah. That's a nice clarification because so Krishna has said, I'm the supreme witness. So he knows what the devotee really wants. Let's take the example of, us, at least myself. As a sadhaka is full of so many impurities, but wanting to come to this platform of exclusive devotion, there are many desires in the heart of becoming purified from these different things. So the devotee doesn't want fame, money, beauty. They don't want any of that. None of that has any value. What has value is the purity of all the anarthas. So Krishna will provide that because Krishna reciprocates with the desires both of his devotees and non-devotees. So yes, we can understand that when Krishna says, I carry what they lack, he is the source of our purification. Because that is the deep desire of the devotee. Understanding the beauty of pure devotional service. Understanding this very powerful verse. How this verse doesn't inspire just deep love and just, emotion for Krishna. It has to. If we really understand it. So yes, Krishna then, what he's providing, but in the realm of that, there's also, bodily needs also will occur, right? In order to render service, there will also be protection. But when the bodily platform is not protected, we know that Krishna had a higher purpose. Faith, full faith, had a higher purpose. Because the ultimate desire for that sadhaka is to come to the platform of pure devotional service. So whatever Krishna is doing through his preserving and caring, knows it is for that. So, Prabhupada, talks about one of, I know many of you know, but, one of my favorite lectures of Srila Prabhupada was when he spoke on the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he talks about how Krishna, bankrupted his business and forced him into this. And all the devotees are saying, Haribol! Because we are all the beneficiaries of that. Right? But Prabhupada saw this was the will of Krishna. It didn't protect his business. Prabhupada was a very successful pharmacist, medicine maker. But it protected his faith in fulfilling the order of his spiritual master. Right? So sometimes in our sadhaka state, we become confused by Krishna's plan, and it maybe draws a little bit of doubt to this verse. There's no doubt this verse is unequivocally always there. We just don't always see it because of some of the impurities. So. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. I think you can constantly remind us that whenever we have any problems, we can just look at this verse. Thank you.
Yes. This is a verse that, as you said very nicely, whenever there's any disturbance in our life, this verse, and I particularly like 529, the end of chapter 5, when we see those, it gives us confidence to see Krishna's position, and of course Queen Kunti's prayer. That's also one that really is powerful. So, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. And if not, we'll conclude. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone.